Hello and welcome to this Haas tip of the day. This is a shiny new Haas live tool lathe. Now if you've just gotten one or are trying to figure out why you might need one, we want to help you get up and going quickly, making parts. So today's tip is all about covering the essentials of drilling on your new live tool lathe. We're going to show you how to drill from all different directions with all kinds of different spindle configurations that your parts might require. This is what I'd want to know on day one. Haas lathes come in a few different configurations, but programming them is consistent across all models. Now on our standard 2-axis lathes, you've got a main spindle, an X-axis, and a Z-axis. When you want to drill a hole on this lathe, it's going to be the part that turns, that rotates, while the tool stays still. It stays static. On Haas live tool lathes, you're going to mount the driven tool or the live tool into the turret. When drilling holes with that setup, it's the live tool that spins while the part stays still. Now this is helpful because it allows us to drill holes off center, off the center line of the main spindle. Now our live tools can be mounted either axially or radially. If we mount them axially, our tool is going to be facing either to the left or to the right on a DS dual spindle lathe along the Z-axis. If the tool is mounted radially, it's going to be mounted up and down. It's going to be drilling from the X positive direction down onto our part. To drill or tap on your Haas live tool lathe, we need to answer a few questions. 4 questions. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, which axis? Are we going to be drilling along the X-axis or the Z-axis? Number 2, what is spinning? Are we going to spin up our main spindle or the secondary spindle or maybe one of our live tools? Number 3, which direction is it spinning? Are we going to go clockwise, forward, or counterclockwise, reverse? And 4th, what RPM is it spinning at? We might be using a P code or an S code to command this. But you don't have to write all this down. We've actually made a cheat sheet for you. And if you go to the end of the YouTube version of this video, you can click on the bonus content and download this little spreadsheet here, this little table. And it's going to give you all the relevant G&M codes you need to drill and tap anything, okay? You can print this out on your own and stick it to your toolbox or your refrigerator. So we're going to go through these right now, one by one, and cover the main spindle, secondary spindle, the axial, and the radial live tooling. And this will become really obvious, really simple for you. Let's go to the machine and take a look. So here's our first part. And I know right away that I want to drill a hole along the center of this part. Now, I'm going to go ahead and load this into my main spindle. And then we got to go back to those 4 questions, right? Starting with number 1. Which axis? Which axis do we want to drill along? We're going to be drilling along the Z-axis. So I'm going to use a G83 peck drilling cycle. Now the G83 not only tells our Haas control that we want a peck drill, but it tells us which axis we want to drill along, the Z-axis. If we wanted to drill along the X-axis, we would use an entirely different G code. On all Haas lathes that leave the factory today, the G83 is only used to peck drill along the Z-axis. Okay, questions 2 and 3. What is spinning and which way does it spin? Now because we want to drill a hole with our main spindle, we're going to use an M03. But that one code not only tells the control to turn the main spindle, but it tells it to turn clockwise. Again, the M03 is answering 2 questions. What is spinning and which way does it spin? Okay, we're turning this spindle clockwise, but clockwise from whose perspective? From the operator's perspective or from the machine's perspective? Well, imagine this. Imagine that your spindle has eyes. As a rule of thumb, the clockwise, counterclockwise perspective is always from the spindle. When we say M03 clockwise, it's from the perspective of the spindle. When we say M04 counterclockwise, that's also from the perspective of the spindle, not the operator. Now this is a little bit corny, but it's going to come in handy when we start talking about secondary spindles. So number 4, what RPM is my spindle turning at? So I want to drill at 2600 RPMs. So I'm going to command an S2600 from within my program with no decimal point. So that's pretty much it. We know how to drill using our main spindle. Well, I'm up here in our demo room because we've got a DS dual spindle lathe up here, and we want to show you how to drill on that secondary spindle. Now, we already showed you how to drill on the main spindle, so programming for this secondary spindle is super easy, really simple. In fact, it doesn't matter if you're drilling, tapping, turning, we're going to program that secondary spindle in the same way. You program it for the main spindle, just like normal, and then you preface all that G code with a G14. And it runs just fine. It takes care of everything for you. It swaps all that code to run on the secondary spindle. Let me repeat that. You program for the main spindle, just like normal, preface with a G14, the control does the rest. It runs it on the secondary spindle. When you're all done, you call up a G15 to turn that off. Well, we're back to our 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, which axis? Well, we're going to be drilling along our Z-axis, so we're going to go ahead and use that same G83. Number 2, what is spinning? In this case, our secondary spindle is turning. And the machine knows this because sometime earlier we commanded that G14. So the G14 is modal. Everything that happens after a G14 is going to happen on the secondary spindle, not the main spindle, until we turn it off with a G15. Number 3, which way, which direction is it spinning? Well, we want to go clockwise because we're using a right-hand drill. Remember, imagine that your spindle has eyes. That M03 or M04 is always from the perspective of the spindle, even when we're talking about this spindle swap mode. Number 4, what RPM is it spinning at? And this is going to be easy. It's the same as our main spindle. We use an S code to control the RPM for both our main spindle and the secondary spindle.